Reactions and responses to stress. So we're talking about physical reactions, fears and phobias, emotional reactions, and changes in lifestyle. So an older term people used to describe what happened after rape was rape trauma syndrome. This is a process that a survivor goes through in response to fear experienced during sexual violence. Each survivor has his or her own experience, and rape trauma syndrome describes a common characteristic between victims' experience due to the profound fear of the inherent sexual assault. Again, this is an older term. Phase 2, denial. This didn't happen to me, or this is, it's not as big as I'm making it to seem. They're going to seek normalcy. They want something to just flow right in their life, flow in the right direction. So what is our role? Options, coping ideas, how to handle these triggers, and resource information. This may also include referrals. Phase 3. This may come and go for a long time. Healing is hard work. You might feel healing in one area but not in another area. And what issues they're wanting to work on. So counseling, they just want to be heard and hear what options are available. Not pushing them to those options, but just letting them know that there is more out there. In the final phase, they're going to regain control, acceptance of what happens to them, and change and growth. You know, they now have this trauma in their history, but where they change and they grow from that, and how they're able to accept what happened but not let it control their lives, that is exactly what phase 4 is. So I kind of touched base on this just a little bit, so we're just going to go into rape trauma versus PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So I just encourage you with this slide to look at the differences between the two, because it'll really show just how different but yet similar they are, if that makes sense. So let's define PTSD. It occurs when a person has been exposed to a traumatic event involving actual or threatened serious physical injury or death to the person's response involves intense fear, helplessness, or horror. Trauma is persistently re-experienced. The person persistently avoids stimuli associated with trauma. The person persistently experiences increased arousal. So how does PTS affect the brain? It's sights, sounds, smells, taste, or touches. These are any of the triggers that your brain kind of memorizes and remembers. So when these things come about, they often come about as a trigger. Not always, but sometimes. So as advocates, we need to remember that all the symptoms defined by PTSD are normal reactions to abnormal stress. Those who suffer from PTSD work to avoid the stimuli that can re-traumatize them. This is another normal response. That may mean a survivor may not want to keep an appointment with an advocate because meeting reminds them of the assault. You can help normalize this fear by talking about it. Not keeping appointments may not be at all about disinterest in the process. It's just, really, this is all 100% the victim's choice, and when they're ready to process it, they may reach out. I want you to take a minute and really look over this little arrow graph we got going here. So, how does trauma affect the brain during the incident, immediately after a night's sleep or a day's sleep, and within 72 hours? How much a big change can go through, especially with the start of the trauma to the end. Rape, trauma syndrome, and PTSD are just a few of mental health issues that can go on after a sexual assault. So we had anxiety, panic, depression, substance use and dependence, eating disorders, dissociative disorders. Sorry, that word just gets me every time. So just looking at, even this is just a small list, but realizing that these can happen, not all the time, but they can. We got somatic issues. This is more feeling it in your body kind of thing. Chronic pain, gynecological difficulties, asthma, heart issues, headaches, and musculoskeletal difficulties. People often say, I get really bad Charlie horses and that kind of thing. That may be a somatic issue.